Okay. Bismillah walhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. So, as probably the vast majority of you know, there was an unspeakable crime committed by former Qari, Quran reciter, influencer, whatever you want to call it, Wisam Sharieff, and the appears to be daughter, and I'm not going to mention, I actually don't know the daughter's name, but I'm not going to mention a lot of facts because obviously we're dealing with a minor. But the daughter of Blake Barakat. So that's why I mentioned both of these here in the title. Blake is the mother of the victim. And just so that we know and keep the names straight here. And I'll be talking and referencing both Wisam and Blake as the perpetrators, because I think initially a lot of the outrage that we saw online was directed at Wisam, and virtually none was being directed at the mom. And so if you haven't seen the affidavit, it's not very hard to find. A quick summary is that Blake, as the mother of the child, collaborated with Wisam to sexually abuse his child, to record videos of this child, and to pass them by way of her recording them of her own child, which is unspeakable, for the consumption of Wisam, who then encouraged this behavior, unbelievably all under the guise of getting closer to Allah. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time rehashing that because, one, it's so corrosive to the soul. And many of you have probably seen this. If you haven't seen it, you can go look up those details for yourself. But there's obviously a reason why I'm doing it. So one, I'm kind of sort of away from home at the moment. And so this all came at me 2 days ago when I was away, and my phone began to immediately erupt. And people were like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And I myself couldn't believe what I was reading. But then when I read the affidavit, it was pretty clear that this is as close as you get to incontrovertible evidence. And I say that because there was a screenshot that also circulated online of Wisam allegedly proclaiming his innocence. And I can tell you that once a person is charged with child pornography, child molestation, they don't get their phone, right, to be able to communicate publicly. And so that was somebody else doing that, perhaps his attorney or somebody else. It also seems that somebody has been busy trying to scrub and get rid of a lot of Wisam's social media presence. And before people, jump to a conclusion on that, I can actually understand, because we have to remember that while the primary victim of this is the child, the daughter of Blake, obviously for the children that Wisam has, for them to find out, and I don't know the age or the number of children that Wisam has. I've just been told that he has children. Imagine finding out on social media, if they're at age or have access to social media. Imagine finding out that your father did these things, right? So it could be nefarious, or it could just be like, oh my God, perhaps somebody on the other side of the family is trying to protect the children from discovering these things that their father has did. And so that, obviously, Allahu A'lam, Allah knows best, what all that was about. The reason why I decided to do this is, one, I said, people had reached out to me, this is unbelievable. And then some people were saying, oh my God, people, my faith is rocked, or other people, their iman is going to be shook, or they may question Islam. And I had made a video the other day briefly discussing that, while that, I understand from the shock value, like if you're talking about momentarily, like, oh my God, you're kind of shook, versus, oh my God, I think that Allah is not one, or God doesn't exist. And this is not meant to shame people that are having that moment, but just to remind people that, look, we believe in Allah. And so I had mentioned, right, just as one example, in Surah Al-Baqarah, in the 177th verse, that Allah lists the things that we are to believe in and what constitutes piety. Right? ليس البر أن تولوا وجوهكم قبل المشرق والمغرب ولكن البر من آمن بالله إلى آخرها. Right? And that the one that believes in Allah Ta'ala, right, is the one who believes in the things that He listed, believes in Him, in the angels, and the messengers, and the books, and so on and so on and so forth. So we have to understand, and let me speak here in some ways now as an imam, and I don't mean as an imam as like a super pious person, but I'm just going to speak professionally. Imams are not infallible. I am not infallible. None of us have isma. None of us are ma'asum. And what I mean by that is we have been lulled into, by the way our community is structurally set up, to place people on pedestals that they don't belong on. And so I feel that when one of these individuals falls off, people act like they're shook. And so, but to circle back around, to not blame the victim, I also believe that a lot of the people that are in these positions are there because of perceived popularity. And then that perceived popularity translates into perceived piety. Therefore, the more popular you are, the more infallible and the more pious that you must be. Then our institutions, our masajid and other institutions, they themselves say, oh, you know what? The way to ensure donations and the way to ensure attendance and the way to ensure being relevant with the youth and all of this other, jingoism that goes along with it, they then continue to propel these people into places that they don't belong. Now, I have a few other ideas I would like to strategize, to suggest maybe how we can work to deal with the situation. And I'm just going to be frank here, because this is obviously not the first time that something like this has happened, where a person in a position of authority, more particularly a person in perceived position of public pious position, a teacher, an imam, a sheikh, whatever you want to call it, has done something, evil. Although I think this one is getting pretty close to taking the cake. We're not just simply talking about somebody that's having a moment of weakness, and gets caught in a moment. Not to say that that's excusable, but obviously this goes way far and above and beyond that. And so let me also just say, I'm dealing with hotel Wi-Fi right now. So if the stream here on IG or the stream on Firefox isn't the best, I am recording this and I'll also upload it to YouTube so you can watch it also again later. So let's deal with the like and subscribe influencer phenomena. One of my theories, people are asking the obvious question: how could somebody that is reading the Quran, teaching the Quran, how could they do something as unspeakable as this? Meaning to sexually molest a child, a minor, and to do it with their mother, right? I mean, this is like heinous beyond heinous. The Quran says, فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا All human beings have been given knowledge, ilham. They know in their souls fujur and taqwa. All of us. All of us can have thoughts that are absolutely heinous, that can range from perversion in the sexual realm to murder to, all kinds of things, thoughts that can bounce around our head. And alhamdulillah, for the vast majority of us, those are just thoughts that bounce in and come and go, and they're waswas of shaitan. But alhamdulillah, Allah is, protects, and most of the time, that's all it is. But it is still there. My personal theory of this, and nobody misunderstand what I am saying, this is not a means to alleviate the burden of criminality from these two individuals. This is merely an observation that I'm making in the hopes that perhaps that could be used to strategize some bulwarks going forward, to take steps to, not to ensure that it never happens again, because obviously this is beyond our pay grade as human beings, but we could strategize it to do a lot better. And again, I'm going to speak to you as an imam, as a professional in the community. My job is teaching Quran. So I'll just give you a little bit of advice here. The world, and because a lot of times we speak in the West, the West this and the West that. I think this moniker or this istilah has to change. We have largely moved into a global culture, and Western culture permeates and dominates all aspects of modern life. Just, it's more of to what degree is it there? And one of those has become a central component of modern Western life, which again, global life, is sexual perversion. People are exposed to sexual perversion on a level hitherto unseen. People are now growing up. I'm going to speak here not only as an imam, but I'm going to speak to you as a man, and I'm going to speak to you as an adult. We're all adults in this room, and I'm going to speak to you very frank. When I was a kid, it's natural as a young boy to have an interest in girls. We all, once we got to that age of puberty, we all became girl crazy, right? Because I was not born a Muslim, and this is something, Muslim or not Muslim. This is just a part of the age, when you get to that age. And there's, of course, a stark difference between the natural fitra and desire that a man has for a woman and vice versa, than what we have in this culture, this global culture, which is the commodification and the distillation and the distribution of sexual perversion masquerading as genuine, just carnal passions and desires or intimacy. And so what I mean by this is that we have people today that are raised on, to use a word, their mother's milk is pornography. Their mother's milk is sexual perversion, not just pornography, homosexuality, sexual aggression. There's probably, feel free to toss some other ones in the comments here because, I'm sure there's some other things but you follow what I'm saying here, is that these things, when human beings are raised on this, just when they're raised on violence, right? I come from Detroit, I come from a background, I know what it's like to grow up in an environment where violence is normalized. You wonder, like, wow, how could somebody just, blow somebody away? How could somebody just shoot somebody? When it's in the mother's milk, the unspeakable can become quite easily speakable. As a matter of fact, it can become dialectical. And so my firm advice, the first little takeaway, you cannot trust any imam or scholar to individually one-on-one where you could just say, I can turn my back and leave it with him. I'm telling you that as an imam. I'm not saying that imams are by and large untrustworthy. I actually personally think it's quite the opposite. That being said, there's clear, however small percentage-wise examples that the opposite is true. So I'm going to tell you as a parent, as an imam, you cannot trust to leave your children unsupervised, lock, stock, and barrel. And this is what I meant yesterday in the video, that going forward, we need structural changes in our community where parents are invested in the tutelage of their children's Islam with their bodies being present. And I know that that is very hard. I know it's hard when we live in a, again, modern, global, Western culture that requires both parents to work or whatnot. But I still, by and large, see a disposition where parents treat the masjid like a daycare. And when my daughter, when my daughter's mother, and most of you know, Marguerite Hill is my daughter's mother. Alhamdulillah, though we divorced, we still have an excellent relationship with one another, and we're still very close. And we're both very much involved in the co-parenting of our daughter. We don't have no baby mama drama, divorce drama. Alhamdulillah, we work together. And so she can tell you, when we were married and when my daughter was young, it is hard because when we were living in Philly, all my family was back in Michigan and all her family was back in California. And it was hard on a young couple to suddenly just deal with the raising of this baby by themselves. And so the question came up of daycare. And I'm like, nope. The only person that can ever be with our daughter unsupervised is me and you, my mom, and that's it. My dad, right? That's it. Nobody can ever be unsupervised with our daughter, because I will tell you, God is my witness. If some harm were to befall my daughter, then I will be raising her from jail. It's as simple as that. And so I understand the challenge, but this is where the dunya, it pulls us in these other directions. This is why, for instance, at Middle Ground, and this is not a plug that, at Middle Ground, we do everything perfect, and if you only did the Middle Ground way, everything would be great. No, I'm just saying, I am cognizant of these issues, and so we have taken a structural approach of how we run Middle Ground, how I do my imam gig at Middle Ground. I do not do children's programming by myself, because people are always coming to me, Imam, we need a hifth program for the kids. Yes, we do. But you know what we need? We need some money so that we can hire a group of teachers, and so we can have that kind of instruction done in a supervised environment where no child is ever individually one-on-one with another teacher, male or female, because this example shows us clearly this was the mother of the child that willingly participated. And in my opinion, this is just my opinion, I think what the mother did is worse than what Wisam did. And Wisam, what he did is beyond my imagination. But what the mother of this child, breaking the trust of a mother to protect their daughter, that is. I know for many people, this guy's he's a qari, he's an imam, he's a sheikh, he's a blah blah blah. Yes, and that is an enormous betrayal. But the betrayal of a mother to the child, no, man, that's even something above that. So, from a structural point of view, no child will be at Middle Ground without the parent or a guardian or something like that to attend the activities and the classes that we do. I do not do one-on-one female counseling with adults, let alone with children. Because people come to me a lot. I'm having a problem, with my son, my daughter, all the time. And I do a lot of family counseling at the masjid for people that have issues. And people say, can I bring my son to talk to you? Can I bring my daughter to talk to you? Yes, inshallah, you can do that. But only if you are there. Either you come, the mom comes, the grandma comes, somebody has to be there with that child. I will not have that child in my presence. Right? I will not be in that child's presence without supervision, let alone the child being in my presence without parental supervision. I will not be in the child's presence without parental supervision. I don't do one-on-one female counseling. The kind of counseling I do more like intake. I give people a space to come because, okay, I'll go talk to the Imam. I feel more comfortable talking to the Imam than perhaps a non-Muslim secular counselor, which isn't to say that necessarily secular techniques of dealing with various issues, is not effective or impermissible, but I understand people sometimes are uncomfortable with that. So I give them the ability to come in like a triage, and then I send them off to a legitimate counselor because I'm not a professional. I'm just can come in, listen to you, and then depending on the the scope of what you're doing, I can help to route you to those resources. And most especially, I do not do one-on-one female counseling. And so I say all this, not to say I got it all right, and if you just do what I do, this never would have happened. No, what I'm saying is, I strongly suggest that we as a community, this is bigger than Middle Ground, bigger than SoCal, I believe we as the Muslim community need to structurally alter how our children are taught, not to the point where we foster a fear environment, but on many levels, this would be far more beneficial, in my opinion. One, taking a do as I say and not do as I do approach tends to undercut and undermine the value of whatever that kid is doing. So if you want your kid to memorize Quran, the best way is you to do it as well. If you want your kid to know and learn about Islam, you should learn Islam along with them. Probably a lot of y'all would probably actually learn something. And even in the case B, if you don't know it, it doesn't matter. Do it with them anyway. Because C, you guarantee their safety. I know that we want to be able to say, oh, if there's anybody I can trust, it's the Imam. And in Jannah, inshallah, that will be the case. But that's not the case for the dunya. The dunya, you always must take precautions. You must always take precautions. And so we have to look at some structural things that we need to change. So that's my sincere advice going forward. I'm not saying pull your children out of the masjid and that behind every imam lurks a predator. I mean, I'm an imam myself. But what I'm saying is the kind of trust that we are giving to potentially flawed human beings is only the trust that we should give to Allah Ta'ala and His Messenger. I'm just saying, as an imam, the only kind of unquestionable trust that you should be able to give, in my opinion, right, is to Allah Ta'ala and His Messenger. And so have these conversations with your community. If there are any imams watching, I think this should be a moment. Let's not do like the kuffar, right? When they have one of these school shootings and the Republicans or the conservatives are like, well, we need to, thoughts and prayers and thoughts and prayers and thoughts and prayers. Yes, of course. In this situation, our primary concern should be for the victim, this child, making a lot of heartfelt dua that Allah Ta'ala will heal her and make her safe, and that she can, inshallah, recover from this heinous crime that was committed against her. But I also, I think we as imams, scholars, school principals, people's in positions of leader, boards, we need to have a team huddle and say, look, we are going to fundamentally change policies so that these are the things that ensure no child is left unsupervised, whether that is some type of chaperoning system, or again, I highly encourage as much as you can, parents need to get involved, right? And so I'm not saying that you have to go to school with your kid. I mean, my daughter, alhamdulillah, goes to IOK. But I don't leave my daughter unsupervised in the idea that she's alone with only one other person. So my daughter's in school all day. She's surrounded by a bunch of other kids and, most importantly, a bunch of other adults. So it'd be very difficult for that kind of thing to happen, and may Allah prevent it. And even in her after-school curricular activities or extracurricular activities at IOK, again, it's with other students, and so she's in a situation where other students and other teachers, so where, again, that's a hard thing to happen. We have to learn from our mistakes. And I do, like, this is a mistake that some degree or another, we all have some measure of culpability. Obviously, none of us are responsible for Wisam's actions in terms of his decision to do that repeatedly over and over and over and record videos of it and all that. Or nor of Blake, right, of her to do that. But what I'm saying is, when we see something like this happen, we should say, you know what? This should, insha'Allah, bi'idhnihi ta'ala, should not be able to happen to another child, or at least not. If it happened, but we took all of the structural measures, then okay, this is what? We believe that if Allah Ta'ala has written evil to happen, well, of course, there's nothing we can do. And that's a part of the qadr, right? That's a part of the qadr that we believe in what? Khayruhu wa sharruhu. But that doesn't mean that we don't take intelligent measures, like putting on our seatbelt when we get in the car, or other things, right? Or, working out. I mean, look at me. I worked out, I ate clean, I did all these things, and yet I just had a genetic precondition to form blockages in my heart, and at 51, I had a heart attack. I wasn't stressed out. I wasn't eating bad. It just, the doctor said, he's like, and in fact, my oldest brother, 2, maybe 3 months before me, had the exact same thing. That's how we discovered that, oh, it's a genetic issue. So if Allah Ta'ala wills for a thing to happen, and that can be evil, good, right? There's nothing that we can do. However, we still need to take the correct preventive measures. So I hope that people will listen to this and take this moment as a watershed moment, so that we don't become paralyzed. Because what I don't want to happen is for people to withdraw from the community. And people, oh, you can't trust any imams. No, part of it is we gave people trust that they never earned. Also, what type of oversight did, again, I'm not saying that, even if, let's say, and I'm not by any means throwing Maghrib Institute under the bus, right? But I would be curious, A, what kind of oversight, and this just goes in general. This goes also to the phenomena of internet personality, right? Oh, I've seen Sheikh Fulan, he's got 1 million followers, I love his TikTok videos, I love this, right? Okay, great. I hope, inshallah, you benefit from Sheikh Fulan or Sheikha Fulana's videos. That don't translate into you just turning over your children to them lock, stock, and barrel and thinking that, they are, you can turn your back on them. And so, again, what oversight? And I think what happens is, when you reach a certain level of social media popularity, there is no oversight. A lot of the people around you will just probably become either adoring fans or yes men and women. You typically probably won't have anybody that you're accountable to. Some of these people just, and it isn't about, oh, you went to a certain institution and learned or whatnot, but I do question the tarbiyah that these people were brought up with. Again, I'm not saying that, oh, if you went to, you sat under, Sheikh Fulan bin Fulan, and now, that's going to secure that you will never have any evil whisper to you in your heart. That's not what I'm saying. But I also do have my own kind of doubts. And also people, I sometimes wonder, they're very young to be put in these positions. That perhaps, and again, this goes to some structures in the community that we might need to change. I know boards at Masajid and other institutions, they love to have young people come in because they will relate to the youth. When I was a young Muslim, all of the people that I related to were older. There was no youth director when I was an 18-year-old Muslim. They were all older dudes. And that was a blessing. That had a tremendously positive effect on me as a young Muslim to come up underneath my elders. To be honest, no kid at the age, and I'm going to use kid, right? No kid 20 or even 30 years old has the right to be called sheikh. Probably doesn't even have the right to be called imam. Unless all you mean is huwa imam al-salah. If he's just leading the prayer because he has a nice voice, that's different. But we use and, we like casually sling these terms around. They don't have enough life experience under their belt. Like just being, again, I'm speaking to you as a man. How do you deal with some, you may not like this kind of language, you may consider it to be coarse. How do you as a man deal when a fine woman walks up to you? Let's spin it again. How do you as an imam, how do you deal when a very beautiful Muslim sister walks up to you? You can't turn that off in your head. You can lower your gaze, right? Which you should do, I should do, you should do, we should all lower our gaze. But the lowering of your gaze in itself is probably an acknowledgement of, wow, she's really attractive. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with maybe, your home life is a little turbulent. Maybe you and your wife either aren't getting along. Maybe your wife is pregnant and so you as a man are not really getting some certain things satisfied. And here comes this, as Michael Jackson would say, pretty young thing. How do you deal with that? I'm not saying as an older man, you still can't make mistakes, but I think particularly with younger people being put in these positions, I personally believe they do not have the training, the depth of character, and the fortitude of spirit to handle those challenges. And so we're kind of putting people on the front line, and they may be getting set up to fail. And we take great joy in kicking people in the ribs when they're down, when they fail. Now, I think in this case, with these two individuals, I will be right there with you, kicking them in the ribs and the head, and I would throw them in a NutriBullet if I could. But what I'm saying is, maybe we need to reconsider this whole, we need young people to relate to the community. I was a new Muslim at 18 years old, and I had no problem relating to men in their 50s, because you go back to the 90s, like when you were in your 40s and 90s, you look like you were in your 70s, right? So when I was 18 and I was sitting with men in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, I had no problem relating to them. No problem whatsoever. It's not the age that will preclude an older person from being able to engage with a younger audience. There's so many other factors that are, beyond what I'm going to talk in this video. But I'm just saying, I think we need to, that's part of the re-strategizing we need to think of. The other part, and maybe I can end with this because I've been going now for a few minutes, is I think it's past time that our institutions are ran by boards. I'm just going to say it out loud. And I'm saying that not because I think having a board or lack of a board would have in any way perhaps thwarted what happened in the case of Wisam and Blake. But what I am saying is that this is not the only case. This is a particularly heinous case, but it's not the only one. And I feel like there are many other cases that are perhaps a degree less in their heinousness that maybe they would. And what I mean is that instead of having a board of just, well-intended, sometimes maybe not people, why don't we have boards of scholars? Ar-rasikhuna fil ilm. Right? Why don't we have boards be a collection of scholars that are running the masjid and running the school and running these things. I'm not saying that you can't have advisors, right? I mean, that's why we're in the middle of an election, right? I mean, a president is, a president has to have a cabinet. And so, sure, you can have advisors, but I personally feel that the people who are in charge of putting these people in front of us, and only based upon popularity and chasing popularity, because that's what's going to get donations, that's what's going to get attendance. There's not a lot of real learning going on. So that when a tragedy happens, people are talking about, I lost my faith. If you're being taught by real instructors, real scholars, they're going to teach you about Iman. And they're going to teach you the nature of life and the ups and downs and how do you face evil. But if you're just being taught by popularity, oh man, you are going to get shook. So maybe we should think about some structural changes that include imams and scholars. And again, imam, we also need to have some qualifications there. Why wouldn't we want people with real deep vested knowledge about the Book of Allah and the Sunnah to be running our communities? So to maybe quickly summarize and end is that this is an unbelievable heinous tragedy. The justice for this will only be able to be settled in the next life, and so it necessitates for us Yawm al-Qiyamah, and it's a proof for it. And therefore, this is one of the reasons why Allah commands us that we must believe wa Yawm al-Akhiri. We must believe in the last day and the day of judgment. We believe in the capacity for Allah Ta'ala to compensate those for any harm, no matter how deep that they suffered in this life, that they can be repaid and mercy will be showered upon them in the next. We have to change the way that we operate in our community, and that the untethered, unspoken truth, our trust to turn our children over to people and turn our backs of them and not participate in and not keep an eye on, this is clear proof. We must change, right? We must change this attitude. And we must pray and beg Allah Ta'ala to have mercy upon the victims of this heinous crime. Beg Allah Ta'ala to guide us to the straight path, and for Allah Ta'ala to rectify our affairs, and that in any time of ibtila, in any time of calamity or test, that inshallah that we draw closer to Him. And therefore, as we also draw closer with each other, we don't turn on each other and we don't turn away from each other. Because as the Prophet ﷺ said, Yadullahi ma'al jama'ah, that the hand of Allah Ta'ala is with the group. And so, nasallah at-tawfiq, inshallah, wal-afu, we ask Allah for forgiveness and for success in this. By all means, leave some comments, suggestions. I just gave, the best of my suggestions. Like I said, I'm not really in the best of environments right now, so I'm just responding to this as I'm able to. But I welcome any other input, inshallah, and I hope that we can work going forward to aid and assist any victims in this, and also make some changes in our community to improve it so that our children can grow up safe and secure, both in their bodies and in their hearts and in their iman, inshallah. وصلواته وسلامه على النبي الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. جزاكم الله خيرا for stopping to listen. Inshallah, hope to see you all soon. Assalamu alaikum.